Jesus as their Lord and Savior have the Holy Spirit inside of them. It's that inner voice that convicts us, guides us, comforts us, and more. Are you leaning on the Spirit that is within you? If not, you are missing out on what Jesus called our advocate. Let's pause and pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today knowing that you hear us. God, we thank you for the gift of prayer and for making a way for us to connect and hear from you. God, we don't want to miss a thing that you have for us, so we ask that you speak to us now. We begin by giving you thanks and praise for the way that you love us unconditionally. We often fail you and rebel, but you still love us. We often don't make time to be with you, but you still love us. God, we thank you for the Holy Spirit. We thank you that we have a guide, a teacher, an advocate, and so much more while we are here on earth. God, would you give us open ears to hear from the Holy Spirit and open minds and hearts to follow what is being asked of us? Father, we also ask that you help us lean into the spiritual gifts that you gave us through the Holy Spirit. They were meant to be used and not hidden. God, bless our efforts as we seek ways to use them for your glory and not our own. Bring opportunities our way to lean into that giftedness. God, we also ask that you help us live out the fruit of the Spirit and look more like you. God, be near today, and we ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Counseling, it's what God created you to do. When you earn your Master of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Moody Bible Institute, you'll be equipped to help others become who God created them to be. Study at Moody's Chicago or Michigan campus, where you can secure certificates in the areas of marriage, family, and couples counseling, as well as trauma-informed counseling. Learn more and get started on your counseling career today. Go to moody.edu/counseling.
Moody Radio presents Christmas with Rebecca St. James. Sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Join us at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights on December 5th at 7 p.m. Celebrate Christ's birth with Rebecca St. James. A night of worship and wonder with special guest pastor Scott Lessing, Associate Pastor of Life Stage Ministries. Tickets are online at moodyradio.org/RSJ.
Your day is starting off strong with Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian, Moody Radio Cleveland, 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
It's 6:38. Text concert to 440-546-2255, and you can join us here from Moody Radio Cleveland and Mornings with Brian for Christmas with Rebecca St. James.
Mm-hmm.
December 5th, Grace Church, Middleburg Heights. A great time will be had by all. Hope you don't miss out. Some of you missed out on the VIP seats because those are sold out. Other ones are going quickly. Hurry up. Concert to 440-546-2255.
Have a good Chrissy. Yes, I love it. Thanks, Brian.
And if you say that to her, she knows who to blame.
Okay, I will. I'll definitely blame Ron.
Why do you just shake your head and smile, Lauren?
I had nothing to say.
Yeah, okay, then I guess that makes sense. So here's what I'd like to do. I want to talk a little bit about gratitude. How well do you all do just in general before we get started with gratitude? Is it something you feel like you're pretty good at?
I think on a surface level I am.
Yeah.
Like saying thanks for the small, like it's chores around the house, or like if you did something for me, I would tell you thank you, or Daria did something, I'd say thank you. But I think it's the deep personal life stuff or even spiritual life, like what Christ has done for us. I don't know if I have a full grasp of gratitude.
Yeah, same here. Like with people, I'm usually pretty good, but when it comes to just a kind of my general attitude and thanking God and remembering everything He's done, I can struggle with that.
Ron has probably never been unthankful.
Oh, thank you for that, Brian.
I knew you'd do something like that.
Yeah, I'm good at the surface level stuff, I think, in my humble opinion. But yeah, that deeper, are you really thankful when you wake up in the morning or in the night, in my case, are you thankful that you can get out of bed and, you know, you're able to walk, your knees aren't hurting or not hurting very bad, you know, as you get older. All those things that, you know, I have a roof over my head. We were just talking about Cuba and the terrible situation they're in where a lot of times they don't even have power. And it's really rare that my electricity goes out. And when it does, it's a couple of hours at the most. Mm-hmm. And I've got a refrigerator and a freezer full of food that are just fine. If I don't open them up, they'll be okay. I have washing machine and dryer and so many things. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm an American. I deserve these things. Why?
Right. Like there's certain things we have that we aren't thankful for because we think it's just something you should have.
Yeah.
And for Sarah and I, it had to be a deliberate effort through marriage counseling to see the value of thanking each other for the little things. Now it comes more naturally, but there's even some marriages, it's like you just assume, well, of course my husband took out the trash. That's what he's supposed to do. Of course my wife did the dishes or took out the trash or whatever it was. That's what she should do. No, we thank each other. It's easy to let those things slip past. Now, with that in mind, there was a great devotional. I don't know who found it, but it's called The 9 or the 1 Gratitude Reading Plan Day 4, which is everyone's favorite title. It's a great title. Really
yeah, it was a 30-day plan, and I just picked which ones I liked.
And it's actually a really good one. And it has to do with Luke 17, okay? So open up your Bibles to Luke 17. We're going to start at verse 11. If you're watching on the live stream, the paper will get curiously close to my face because the print is very small.
Oh my!
Do you want to read it?
Sure, I can.
Yeah, let's
11
do it.
to what?
11 to 19.
Okay.
This is Jesus heals 10 men with leprosy.
On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well."
A couple of observations I made as I read this. First of all, they were already at a distance, the 10 lepers, because at that time, if you had leprosy, you were set aside. You couldn't be close. So they were far enough that they had to yell. Mm-hmm. I mean, it specifically says, Luke pointed out, they yelled in a loud voice. Jesus, Master, have pity on us. And remember, Jesus' direction was, go and present yourself to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. So picture people far off. They have to yell to get Jesus' attention. They turn around, and as they're even getting further away, they're cleansed. In a dramatic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I could see myself easily going, oh my goodness, it's gone, and I just start running. I can't believe it. This is amazing.
Go back to your family.
Yeah, like, it's not as if they were standing next to him. I'm like, whoa, this is great. Thanks, buddy. You know, not that you should call Jesus buddy, but you know what I mean. I could see myself continuing on. It's not the natural thing to think of, but I think in this circumstance, it does make sense. But one guy turned around. Now, I find it interesting that Luke pointed out specifically that it was a Samaritan.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a reason, because the way Luke wrote it, it's like he forgot to say it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, he was a Samaritan.
Yeah, in the NIV I have in front of me, it says, one of them, when he was healed, came back praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Now, why would this matter?
The Jews hated the Samaritans. They were considered a lesser race, sort of like a half-breed, if you will. They despised them.
Time and again, it's highlighted in scriptures that it was like, and look, the Samaritan's the one that came back. The parable of the Good Samaritan is wild because it was the Samaritan who helped the guy, not the couple of priests and Levites and stuff that went by. So what do we make of that?
Well, I think first of all, we need to note that usually in these types of stories, we are not the hero.
This is the thing.
Right.
We are likely not the one that's coming back to give thanks. He's not telling the story because we are the ones that give thanks. We're the ones that don't.
And I think that's part of the point of it being a Samaritan. In God's providence, it was a Samaritan who came back, where Luke is saying, look, all these people who should be thankful were not. And the last person you'd pick to be thankful is that person. And yet we still read the story and make ourselves the Samaritan that came back. I'd be that guy. I'm so thankful. I thanked the Lord this morning for my Snickers bar I had on the way into it. So there's much to take out of this. In fact, in just a few moments, let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to read through portions of this helpful devotional to think through gratitude as Thanksgiving approaches.
Hey, my name is Brant Hansen, and if you want to see something incredibly encouraging, miraculous even, go to cure.org/Moody. Go look at these before and after photos of kids who have been healed in the name of Jesus at Cure International children's hospitals around the world. Probably the best website in the world, and I'm not kidding, because it shows what God is doing. He's still at work through us. He's healing. It's so worth your time. Just look. It's so good. Cure.org/Moody.
Ever wondered if there's a way for Christians to meet their healthcare costs affordably and efficiently? A biblical lifestyle alternative to traditional healthcare options? The answer is Christian Healthcare Ministries. They've enabled believers to live out their faith while embracing a voluntary health cost ministry for over 40 years. It all starts with a visit to chministries.org/Moody to see how CHM meets values and healthcare costs. Get more information and have your questions answered at chministries.org/Moody.
Moody Radio is thankful for support for businesses across the country, like Fellowship Home Loans. Whether purchasing or refinancing a home, Mike and Brian walk hand in hand with clients through the whole process. You can learn more about their approach to mortgage lending at fellowshiphomeloans.com.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Moody Radio, Mercy Me. It is 6:50. Don't forget to get your tickets to Christmas with Rebecca St. James coming up December 5th. Grace Church, Middleburg Heights, featuring a teaching from Pastor Scott Lessing. He'll be on with us tomorrow, so you can get a sneak preview maybe. Nonetheless, get your ticket today. Text CONCERT to 440-546-2255. If you're just tuning in before the break, Lauren read us Luke 17, verses 11 to 19, which is a story where Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, was on the border of Samaria and Galilee, basically, and there's a group of 10 lepers standing at a distance, and they yell out in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And Jesus essentially said, hey, guys, head back present yourself to the priests. They turn around and go. As they go, they're healed. Only one came back to thank Jesus for healing him from leprosy, and it was the Samaritan. Luke was, deliberate to point that out. So we've got a wonderful devotional that we're looking through tied to this with gratitude, and I want to take us through a portion of it. Here's what the guy says. When I read Luke 17, 11, and 19, I feel angry at how the 9 lepers Jesus heals walked away and never say thanks. They ask Jesus to heal them, and after he does, if they overlook and ignore his gracious work for them. I scoff at their ingratitude and think, how could they do that? It's frustrating, if not infuriating. Don't they know what Jesus did for them? How can they not give thanks? And as I just can insert this, it's easy to read it and go, yeah, they had leprosy. Da, da, da. Leprosy was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your body was totally rotting and falling apart, but you were separated from everyone you know and loved.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a level at which you might go, what's frustrated, angry? No, I mean, that's the dramatic nature of that type of healing and not being grateful. Yeah, I get this guy. He's like, yeah, of course it's infuriating. He says, it's easy to spot the failures of others when we read these stories. When we read about Israel in the Old Testament or the disciples in the New Testament, it's easy to point our fingers and shake our heads about how quickly they veer off course. One minute they're rescued by God from slavery, and the next minute they're asking to go back. Jesus tells his disciples he came to lay down his life for others, and before long those disciples argue about who will be the greatest. These stories give us a window into our own heart. I'm like the unfaithful Israel or the disciples who missed the point. I often do what the 9 ungrateful lepers do. My frustration with them should morph into conviction over my own ingratitude. You and I have all kinds of needs in our life, and yet despite how we ask God to intervene, we often ignore God when he answers, don't you? We take the blessings and run. We move on once we've had the thing we wanted. We're as guilty as the 9 lepers who walk away. He goes on to say more, but I think that's the core of what he's trying to say, is we really ought to take more time to see ourselves in those 9 lepers, in that we ask God for things, and when we get them, we just kind of move on. To what extent is that true for any of you? I know it is for me, but I want to yield.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I realize that people in general, but also me specifically, are quite forgetful. It is very easy to poke fun at the Israelites for how quickly they forgot the dramatic exit from Egypt. But
yeah, the parting of the Red Sea.
The plagues that they were spared from. But I do this all the time. I forget how God has come through for me and the innumerable blessings he has gifted to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've had those times, right, where you're pleading with the Lord for months or maybe even years for something, and you get it, and maybe you go, oh, thanks. That's about it. You might even just go, finally.
Yeah, or you stopped praying for it, and then it was answered somehow, and you just forgot that you were even asking for it, so you forget that you should be grateful.
Yeah. You've asked for it for so long, it's almost like the Lord owes it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that being the case, what does it look like then? I mean, it doesn't have to be, I don't think, as dramatic as this one leper who came back and, dropped to the ground and wept and, all that. It could be.
Yeah.
But how can we be deliberate about being thankful for even the little things?
It might be as simple as leaving yourself notes around that might be like, thank God for a warm house to live in, or thank God for a smoking hot wife, in my case.
Good morning, Dana.
Yeah, just in case.
She just texted she's listening.
Oh, my. But, leaving yourself something to remind you. And if notes aren't your thing, maybe there's a visual, a hat that you put on the dashboard of your car that can remind you of something or someone.
Yeah, I'm reading this book right now that's about rebuilding positive habits. And one of the things it really advocates for is starting your day with prayer, and specifically starting your day with a prayer of gratitude. Thanking God for this undeserved blessing of this new day that he's given you.
I think it also takes intentionality. Maybe you need to go back if you keep a prayer journal or a prayer list, or you have a small group who keeps a prayer list together, and recall what you've been asking for, whether you wrote that down yourself or someone else, or even, like we read in the Bible, setting up stones of remembrance. That can even be, if that works for you, actual stones, write on the stones what God has done for you. Keep them in a little nice, cute dish at your front door, and have stones of remembrance of how God has proven himself faithful to you.
Those are all great ideas, and I would encourage folks listening, whether that fits for you, come up with something where you can spend time as we approach Thanksgiving. You don't have to be melodramatic. Don't get attention for it. It's not the point. The point is being reflective on truly how much the Lord has blessed you when you don't deserve it, and how there's things you've received that you should be thankful for, and you haven't been. God's not mad at you. But I think you ought to thank him for all those things.
Yeah.
It's 6:57 on WCRF. We'll continue preparing your heart for Thanksgiving in the days ahead. A little bit in a fun way in a few minutes. I'll explain more.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
President-elect Trump met with President Biden at the White House yesterday for about 2 hours. It's 7:02. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Speaking at a White House briefing, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said it was a substantive meeting in which they discussed national security and domestic policy issues. Both spoke of a peaceful transition of power and shook hands, with Biden giving his congratulations. Lakewood residents are being urged to check that the license plate on their vehicle is actually their license plate. The Lakewood Police Department says perpetrators swapped several license plates on vehicles parked in the Nicholson-Emerson-Harlan area of Lakewood over the weekend. Police do not have any leads as to who could have been behind this incident, but they remind the public that switching license plates is a felony. And authorities are investigating the death of a Summit County Jail inmate. 52-year-old David Brown experienced a medical episode in his cell early Tuesday morning and later died at the Akron campus of Summa Health System. Brown's cause of death has not yet been identified. I'll be right back with sports and weather.
Send joy to a child in need with Operation Christmas Child. Simply pack a shoebox with fun toys, school supplies, and hygiene items. Then bring it to a drop-off location during National Collection Week, November 18th through the 25th. You can also build a shoebox online. And the best part is the good news of Jesus Christ is shared alongside your gift. And each child is given the opportunity to participate in a life-changing discipleship program. Visit SamaritansFirst.org/OCC to learn more.
In sports, the Cavaliers blasted the 76ers 114-106 and improved their perfect season to 13-0. Meantime, the Penguins fell to the Red Wings 3-2 in overtime. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Rain likely today with high temperatures in the upper 40s. At last check, we did have light rain across most of our listening area. 43 degrees is the temperature in Cleveland, Akron and Canton 40. Ashtabula just mostly cloudy right now and 46.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
The Ohio Department of Natural Resources is offering Thanksgiving feasts at state parks all across the state. Guests can enjoy traditional Thanksgiving dishes while enjoying activities and scenic landscapes with their families. More information can be found on the Ohio Department of Natural Resources website, but remember, reservations are required. And that's your Moron Moment. And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 7:05. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
Good morning. It's a Thursday. It's 7:09 on WCRF. Be sure to text in the word concert to get your tickets to Christmas with Rebecca St. James. You can text the word concert again to 440-546-2255. The big show, December 5th, Grace Church of Middleburg Heights. And speaking of Christmas/holidays, we want to chat for a minute. We have some stories to share with you, but we want to hear from you on your holiday cooking and hosting disasters.
Yeah.
Now, I've discovered, every year I'm reminded there are some Scrooges out there. And so let me just tell you, I'm using the word holiday to summarize 3 holidays.
Multiple holidays.
Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's. Okay? So if you're wound up about the word holiday, you can just sit down and relax. So
we're talking about multiple holidays, multiple days.
We know what Christmas is, Jesus' birthday. It's awesome. Thanksgiving, be thankful for it. New Year's, yay, New Year, God, thank you. All that stuff. So all that to say, we're looking for a holiday / cooking and hosting disaster.
Yes, I want to hear fails. Epic fails.
Fails are lots of fun. So we have our own to share. You can call or text, though, 440-546-2255. Call or text with your holiday hosting or cooking disaster.
Please.
Or fail, however you want to put it. Doesn't have to be the worst thing ever. It could be a little
No, it could be silly.
Yeah, we like all that stuff. 440-546-2255. 440-546-2255. Let's see, Lauren, you go first.
Okay. It's not a holiday because I don't typically cook on the holidays because we go to my parents' house or my in-laws' house.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But I'm going to give you a cooking fail.
Good.
One time, I don't know. Oh, it's all coming back to me as I start to tell it. I was trying to make dinner when we were freshly married.
Oh, yeah.
Like super fresh. And I don't know, it was like a broccoli rice bowl, chicken bowl, ranch chicken bowl. I don't know.
Did you feel pressure because it was early on and you're like, I want to make a nice meal?
No.
No, you were just doing your thing. Okay.
Yeah, I just have to eat. So it was like rice, broccoli, chicken. It was like a little broccoli ranch bowl. Okay. So you're supposed to cook the broccoli florets. Bake them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I had the oven too hot, if our oven was just a hot oven. You know, sometimes they are a little bit warmer than usual. Or if I put them in there too long. They were burnt to a crisp.
Crunchy.
They were completely charred black.
Broccoli chips.
Yes. And our whole apartment stunk. It was
Did you
inedible.
serve them still?
No.
What did Eddie do?
They were crunchy broccoli crisps. They shriveled up. He just laughed.
Did you cry or laugh?
No, we just laughed.
You laughed together?
I was mad because then we had to order food or something because we had to eat, but it was pretty bad. And then another time, I followed the recipe to the T.
Of course.
Never not following the recipe to the T unless I make it a couple times and figure out how to do it. It was these barbecue chicken tostadas.
Ooh, fancy.
Should be easy. Just a tostada, not shell. What do you call it?
It's like a flat, hard shell.
You can call it a shell.
Shell. Shredded chicken with barbecue and maybe a mozzarella cheese of some kind. It was so disgusting. Eddie still talks about it to this day, and that was 8 years ago.
What did you do wrong?
Do you know? I don't know. It was bland. It was dry. It was so gross. And he just couldn't eat it. And he'll still talk about my barbecue chicken tostadas to this day.
Wow. We'll have to ask him
I still
about
have
those.
it on Pinterest, and I think about it sometimes should I try again?
You should give it another shot.
Should I try again?
You should try to redeem
yourself. Now that I'm
yourself.
better at cooking? Yeah.
I think you should.
It's disgusting.
But have a backup and plan.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Ron.
Again, we want to hear your cooking or hosting for the holidays disasters. And even if you have an epic one that's outside of the holidays, that's fine too. 440-546-2255. Sweet Daria, you're a wonderful cook. I've had your key lime pie.
Oh, yeah.
And it changed my life. I didn't know people could make those.
Hand-squeezed limes.
Right. I thought it was just in bakeries where professionals. Nope. Daria can make one and it's delicious.
Oh,
so how could you possibly fail?
Oh, boy. So when I was in high school, my family was hosting Thanksgiving. I was helping my mom in the kitchen. I was in charge of the mashed potatoes. and we're having a lot of people, so there's a lot of potatoes that I'm chopping and peeling and boiling. And so because I've got a lot, massive vat of potatoes in front of me, I need a lot of salt. There was way too much salt. I did not taste as I went. I just there's a lot of potatoes here. I'm just going to keep dumping salt. And it was bad. It was so bad. Fortunately, the Kroger, which was just a few miles away from the house, was open. So I drove to the Kroger, picked up another 10-pound bag of potatoes. And because we don't like to waste food in my house, we didn't start from scratch. We're just going to add potatoes to this already existing vat of potatoes.
That was your solution?
That was our solution. I don't think my mom wanted me to start over. Just add some more potatoes. It'll balance out. 10 pounds of potatoes later to this already existing vat of potatoes, it did not balance out.
Oh, no.
It was still...
You had 15 pounds of potatoes then.
Probably. It was still so salty.
Did you serve it?
Yeah, my job after that was stand by the door, greet the guests, tell them as they walk in, do not put salt on the potatoes.
I would just be like, no potatoes.
I like
no
your mom's
potatoes?
solution, though. Yeah, it's we'll just add more potatoes.
Oh my gosh, that stuff makes me so mad. I would have been just in a blind rage.
I mean, it was a good solution, I thought.
Oh my gosh, we got a text that says, Thanksgiving a couple years ago, I hosted Thanksgiving for the first time. I decided to try and make apple pie.
Good move.
I added 1 tablespoon of salt instead of 1 teaspoon of salt. We didn't find out until after we baked the pie. My dad took the first piece. He was kind and said it was a tad salty. We had to throw it away. I'm trying again this year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, good. I don't think getting the critique, it's a tad salty to an apple pie is not quite what you're looking for.
Right.
It's a tad salty.
A tablespoon, a teaspoon. It's an easy mistake when you're a new cook.
Oh,
Gosh.
yeah.
That's pretty good.
I always check. Is that a teaspoon or a tablespoon? I freak out about it. We got another text. As a newlywed, I volunteered to do the turkey.
Of course.
Everything seemed to be going well until we started to pull the dressing out of the center of the turkey. Towards the back, I started pulling out something that looked like paper, and it was. I had no idea there was a bag of giblets in the center cavity of the turkey. It was not my finest hour.
Well, nobody can know all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is so funny.
I laughed so hard years ago in America's Funniest Home Videos. There was some dude that walked over to the table to set down the turkey and tripped, and it flew out the window.
Oh no!
I mean, those things happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did I ever tell you about? I think I told you about Kathleen Zion, our good friend, former co-host of the show. She was having dinner with her parents. I think it was a holiday. Have I told you this?
I don't know. You have to tell the story, Brian.
And she...
Why does he do that to me?
Her mom, she was worried about upsetting her mother. So she gets her plate full and she grabs the container. She loves olive oil. Grabs the little thing of olive oil. And she started putting olive oil all over her rice because she loves that. And starts eating the rice and is going like, oh no, this tastes like dish soap. But I don't want to say anything because I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings. Mm-hmm. She eats like 3/4 of the rice.
Good girl.
And then she says something like, oh, there's something wrong with the rice.
Is there a special flavor of this oil?
Turns out her mom was being fancy. Cindy Farini was fancy.
Mm-hmm.
And she used an olive oil container for the soap.
Yeah.
So literally Kathleen doused her rice with soap.
And ate soap.
And then ate like 3/4 of it because she didn't want to offend her mom. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's go now to Bob. Hey, Bob, what's your cooking / Thanksgiving fail? Bob, tell us about it.
Sure. It's about my father-in-law, who very smart guy, CPA, chief financial officer. And my mother-in-law was going away one night, and she left him a TV dinner.
Oh.
And so he reads the directions and preheat the oven to 400 or whatever it is, and insert the TV dinner for 25 minutes. And he did that, and she comes home and she's, hey, how was dinner? And he's like, hey, it was not too good. It was cold, wasn't done. And what he had done is he just preheated the oven to 425. Then he turned it off, stuck the TV dinner in.
Mm-hmm.
Follow the directions to a T, and
yes.
They don't tell you to leave it on.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate the call. Yeah, people make those kind of mistakes. So, when Sarah was first learning to cook, I didn't cook until recently, but she had a pan where she was heating up oil and started on fire. Very scary.
Oh, yeah.
So her solution was to grab it, run across the house and throw it out in the front lawn.
Did she make it through the house?
She did, but there was a huge burn mark on the back of our new couch.
The exact same thing happened to my dad.
Really?
My mom left a pan on the stove, and Dad was taking a nap on the couch. Mom forgot about the pan, apparently. He wakes up, and he sees the pan on fire. So he's like, got to get this out of the house. So he picks it up, runs across the house, and then the chair catches on fire. And we probably gets it out of the house. Chair's on fire. Somehow they got the chair out because we had that chair until I was in late high school.
Your dad.
He's a pyromaniac. There was another time our tree got TP'd, and his solution was to burn the toilet paper out.
Oh, no.
No.
And the toilet paper fell across the fence on fire and burned a hole through the neighbor's trampoline.
When we were helping you and Jimmy move a number of months ago, your dad had these cool gloves to help not have his hands hurt.
Yeah.
He lost them in the first 5 minutes.
Yes, he did.
Lost the gloves. They were gone. And your house was packed up. There was nothing in the house. All right, it's 7:20. Time for a quick break. We'll come back. We'd love to hear more of your holiday cooking and hosting disasters. Lauren is enjoying this incredibly. You can call or text 440-546-2255, 440-546-2255.
So right now may be the perfect time for you to rethink how you pay for health care. And here's why. This time of year is decision time for a lot of people, but it's also when you can join MediShare and save even more than usual. For many families, joining MediShare means saving about $500 a month, which is a game changer for a lot of people, obviously. But what's more, MediShare members like it a lot. Their satisfaction rate is 98%. Imagine that. And MediShare is a proven thing, too, for over 30 years. It's a Christian community of hundreds of thousands of people now. And here's the thing. If you join before November 15th and you mention the promo code SHARE, they'll waive your application fee, so you save even more right off the bat. I'll give you the number here in a second, but just call and you'll get a price within 2 minutes. And again, the deadline is November 15th. So call now. You'll save even more. Here's the number, 877-58-BIBLE. That's 877-58-BIBLE, 877-58-BIBLE.
Moody Radio is thankful for listeners and support from businesses like Duma Meats and Farm Market. Duma Meats and Farm Market, supporting Moody Radio in Cleveland and surrounding areas. More information about Duma Meats and Farm Market is at dumameats.com.
Moody Radio is thankful for Kingdom Story Company, the creators of Jesus Revolution, now releasing the best Christmas pageant ever. The Herdman kids are absolutely the worst. They lie, they steal, they bully. And when they hijack the town's sacred Christmas pageant, they might also be exactly what the community needs to be reminded of the true meaning of Christmas. Directed by Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, the best Christmas pageant ever. Now playing. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
Keeping your eyes on Jesus in a changing culture can be difficult. Let us help. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
7:22. Again, text the word concert to us at 440-546-2255 to get your tickets to Christmas with Rebecca St. James coming up December 5th at Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. We're having a blast here. Lauren's crying from laughing as we talk about our holiday cooking and hosting disasters. For the Scrooges out there, we're saying holiday because we don't have to just stick to Thanksgiving. You can say Christmas as well.
Yes.
That's how you summarize holiday. Multiple holidays. Okay, we've got a bunch that have been texted in, but you can text or call right now with your holiday cooking or hosting disasters, 440-546-2255.
Last year, we hosted Thanksgiving for about 20 people. Wanting the house to look nice, we planned to get all of the interior doors painted dark gray.
Oh, good idea. Okay.
The painters fell behind and couldn't deliver the doors in time. So we didn't have any interior doors. We didn't have a bathroom door for 20 people.
Oh no.
To solve the problem, we hung a sheet.
Yeah.
But the only sheets we had available were Star Wars sheets.
Yep.
The Star Wars sheets don't muffle the sound. It was a Thanksgiving to remember.
Yes.
Oh, that is so wild. Can you imagine the horror? The painter's like, sorry, can't get those back to you. Brutal.
Not even one.
Gosh. And we also have a theme here with pumpkin pies or pumpkin stuff.
Okay.
After dinner, we sat down again for dessert, and it suddenly dawned on me that I had forgotten to add sugar to the pumpkin pie filling before baking. I took it back to the kitchen, scooped the goop into a bowl, added the sugar, mixed it, and refilled the crust. The ugliest pie, but it was yummy.
Oh, that's a
good.
great solution, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, just mix it back in, then flop it back in.
Yeah.
And then another pumpkin fail. Every year, my cousin and my sisters and I all make about 40 pumpkin rolls all together. And we were tasked with the mix to the dry ingredients and the mix to the wet ingredients to my sister, who's the biggest baker. She said that sugar doesn't go in the wet ingredients, but she never added it. She thought that the other people on the other team added the sugar to the dry mix. With pumpkin rolls, we didn't realize till 8 or 10 batches later that they had no sugar.
Oh, no.
Gross.
Yeah, and pumpkin without sugar is not...
It's not pleasant.
It's not. It's pretty harsh. It's a little bit of a harsh flavor.
Yeah, the sugar is supposed to hide the pumpkin part.
Yes, exactly. My epic Thanksgiving fail was when my daughter was 2 years old. She came down with the stomach flu. We had 15 guests in town, and the strain of the stomach flu was super contagious, and within 24 hours, everybody got sick. So few people made it to Thanksgiving table and had to sit and listen to everybody in the bathrooms behind them. Many of my family can't eat turkey to this day.
Oh, boy. All right. Let's jump to the phones here. Again, 440-546-2255. Linda, what's your story?
Hi. So this was about 30 years ago. I had my first apartment, my first job, and I was hosting my entire family over. And I had to work, so I put my sister in charge. She put the turkey in the oven, and then later when I got home, my whole family was over. They were ready to eat, so I was pulling the turkey out, and the turkey was raw. And I didn't realize I had never baked in this oven because it was new, a new apartment. So I had taken the turkey down to it was a double, to the owner's microwave, and I kept microwaving the turkey.
Oh, no.
And my family was like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Oh, no, it's still cooking. It's fine." But I was so hot and sweaty that I had to turn down the heat and open the window, so I kept running up and down trying to cook this turkey. So later when my grandpa was leaving, he's like, "Next time I come over your house, I'm going to call the gas company and tell him to turn on the heat because he was so cold." But he never told me. But I was running up and down the steps trying to cook this turkey. I don't even remember if the turkey ended up being cooked or not, but it was a disaster. So I've never hosted Thanksgiving again, and that was like 30 years ago.
And you tried so hard. Oh,
I did. It was my first Thanksgiving ever, and that was my last. I'm like, nope, not doing it. Not.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure microwaving is not the recommended method for turkey. So I'm surprised you could fit it in there. How'd you fit it in there?
I don't know. I don't think it was a huge one. I don't even remember. It was so long ago, but I was like, this obviously didn't work. So
That's a great story, Linda. Thanks for the call, sister. God bless you.
Oh my gosh, we got a lot of funny ones here. Every holiday I make deviled eggs. Everyone loves them. They all say that mine are the best they've ever had. I boiled the eggs the night before. The next day I mixed everything up and topped them off with paprika. I did 6 eggs and then noticed bugs in the paprika.
Oh no.
I didn't know bugs liked paprika.
Yeah, I would think that would be like a bug repellent. It's like crushed peppers or something, isn't it?
Ew.
Oh my gosh. The next one is, there was a power failure from a snowstorm on Thanksgiving 1 hour into cooking the turkey.
Uh-oh.
We had to shovel the snow off the porch, brush the snow off the grill, carved enough slices off the turkey, and finished cooking the turkey on the grill.
Oh, no.
That's a good move.
That's smart.
That is smart.
I mean, I think we would have just cried and gave up and had no turkey.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Our first Thanksgiving together, I put the turkey in the oven. 30 minutes later, we heard a loud crack. The dish had shattered.
Oh.
We had canned spaghetti for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, nothing you can do when the glass pan shatters. Oh, brutal. Okay, let's go to line 2. We've got Becca in Canton. Becca, what's your story?
Hi. I'm from Stowe. Thank you guys for your ministry. I so appreciate you guys having me on this morning. Quickly, we have a big family get-together, and during Christmas time, because my dad's birthday is the 24th, so we all have a big party to do a combined celebration. We had just held hands and prayed, and we're getting ready into our meal. My dad's first bite, he choked on prime rib.
No.
Mind you, my dad's a firefighter, so he ran to an island and tried to do it on himself. My brother at the time, who was kind of bouncing in between jobs, ran over and was able to give him the Heimlich successfully. We all, very carefully picked through our plates. Nobody really ate. after that.
Oh,
And
no.
we joke about it now, but now my brother is a firefighter also. So it kind of
Changed his life.
started his career. So anyway, yeah, we have not had prime rib since for any celebration.
I don't blame
we
you.
joke about it now.
Great story, Becca. Thanks so much for the call. I love that he tried to give himself the Heimlich.
Right.
It's fine. I'm a firefighter.
None
I
of
got
you
it.
can help me. Anne says, we always hosted my husband's side of the family for Christmas. One year, we bought a tree that was too tall for our living room. It was already in the stand, so my husband just cut off the top. We had so much fun calling it our Christmas bush.
Wow. Okay. Hey, it is just about time for us to get to a break, but let's do this. If you can pardon me, you are welcome to send us more of your stories, and I think we'll share these on Follow-Up Friday because Ron Eastwood has some he didn't share yet.
Yeah.
As well. So text in or email in if you got our email address, your cooking and holiday hosting fails, and we'd love to hear about them, okay? 440-546-2255. Coming up in just a minute, our good friend Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. He's a political science professor at Cedarville University and director for the Center for Political Studies there as well. We're going to chat with him about a variety of political issues, but specifically, there's another 10 Commandments case that's come up.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to discuss the details of that and talk about it from a faith perspective in a few minutes.
I'm Joy Traxel, and this is Pause for Prayer. So Halloween is behind us, and we were often seeing children wearing costumes and having a blast, gathering as much candy as they possibly could. Not only is there fun in eating the sweet, sugary sweets, but it's a night to pretend to be something new. I often wonder how often we do that in our day-to-day lives. You know, discontentment can lead us to do that when we don't feel like who we are is enough. Could I help you be free of that today? You are enough. You are created in the image of God, and that is more than enough. So live out that truth today. Take off that mask. Let's pause and pray. God, we love you and adore you for so many reasons. We love that you are always near and hear us each time we seek you in prayer. We are grateful for your unconditional love and the undeserved blessings you freely give. God, forgive us when we don't take the time to say thank you and appreciate who you are and what you do. Help us do better today. Help us to appreciate what we have and not want more. When we begin to feel discontent, we are actually saying that you are not enough. We are saying that we know better, and that is not what you desire for us. You desire for us to have grateful hearts and to see that your ways are best. God, the world around us tempts us to want more and to keep striving for happiness in material things. Would you remind us that all that we need comes from you? Would you give us opportunities to model this to those around us? When we see them searching for fulfillment in areas that are not lasting, God, give us the words to say and convict us to pray for them. With the upcoming gift-giving season approaching, help us prepare our hearts now. This will give us time to allow your word to penetrate our hearts and minds. Bless our efforts today, and we ask this in the name of Jesus, the one that is all we need. Amen.
Pursue your passion for shepherding, teaching, and ministry leadership with a Master of Divinity from Moody Theological Seminary. New for fall of 2025. Earn the same world-class degree in a shorter amount of time. We've reduced credit hours to earn a degree while maintaining the quality and course content essential for effective ministry. Need flexibility? Take classes online or on our Chicago or Michigan campuses. Even interchange between all options on a class-by-class basis. Get started at moody.edu/MDiv.
Join the conversation by call or text at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
That was Rebecca St. James. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. She's coming to town here in a couple of weeks, December 5th, Grace Church in Middleburg Heights. Would love to have you join us for the Christmas show. She's got some Christmas albums. She'll play your favorites, some of her own, I'm sure. Ron might just break out in song or dance. Ron's
you never
gonna be
know.
there. Yeah.
I went to the Gaither concert about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I was singing every song. I couldn't stop. But a lot of people around me were, so it wasn't just me. But I felt like, oh, it's the Ron Eastwood concert backed by the Gaither Trio.
And it could be Ron Eastwood featuring Rebecca St. James. We're not sure yet. And Lauren will be there. We'd love to have you join us. Text CONCERT to 440-546-2255. Text CONCERT to 440-546-2255. With us now, a friend of the show. He's been around a lot. We love throwing very difficult topics at him. Dr. Mark Caleb Smith is Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities and Professor of Political Science at Cedarville University. Welcome back, my friend.
It's always good to be with you. How you doing?
Good. Now, I figured you're tired of talking about the election. I think a lot of Americans are tired of it. So we have something non-election related. You're welcome.
Yeah, and this is going to be really simple, I'm sure, right?
No, yeah, you know me. I love asking you easy questions.
Yeah, right.
There was a federal judge that stopped a new law in Louisiana. Now, before we get to that, it has to do with displays of the Ten Commandments. So how long has this been a thing in America where where there's legislation passing requiring the Ten Commandments to be posted?
I mean, we've had the Ten Commandments posted in various places for since we've been a country, effectively. There's the Ten Commandments are portrayed on the outside of the Supreme Court, for example. Sort of, if you look at the frieze surrounding the court, you see depictions of Moses holding Ten Commandments as sort of in a gallery of lawgivers, And so we've had the Ten Commandments pretty prominently displayed in government buildings and in courthouses and other places throughout much of our history. But it became contentious after World War II, and there began to be a lot of questions about the propriety of the government displaying those things in certain situations. And in terms of in classrooms, it's been a pretty consistent tradition to have them posted in classrooms, but the court struck that down in 1980, and we can talk about that. But we've seen a resurrection here of efforts to have more public displays of things like the Ten Commandments over the past few years, and the court's having to deal with it again. So this piece of legislation, not a surprise, but it's part of a larger movement, as you know.
Now, let's go back to the earlier one you mentioned. Post-World War II, we start having people wonder about displays of the Ten Commandments. Why? What was going on there?
Yeah, and it's not, just to be fair, it's not just displays of the Ten Commandments. It's prayer in schools. It's whether or not schools can use funds to supplement salaries of teachers in private schools. It's whether they can help private school students with textbooks. There's a whole lot of discussions and litigation surrounding how much public schools can use religion, support religion, encourage religion. And that really grows out of post-World War II, I think primarily because America begins to be much more diverse. You see more and more people who don't fit into that sort of traditional Judeo-Christian worldview. And so whether it's maybe religious minorities, like there's a string of cases involving people like Santorians who sacrifice animals, or whether you even think of folks like Jehovah's Witnesses and others who don't hold necessarily to all of what would be a typical Judeo-Christian mindset. And so as those people become more prominent, they begin to ask considerable questions. Should you be able to pass laws that restrict what we do, or should you be able to show preference to Christianity in a way that maybe we find objectionable? And the court has to deal with that question freshly after World War II, and they begin to be much more separationist. They begin to maybe draw some pretty hard lines between religion and the government, especially in the context of public education.
Well, and with that in mind, as you look at the First Amendment, there actually aren't that many words about religion in there. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and that's, this all gets very, very weedy very quickly. But yeah, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And that's really all that we have. But all of those words are really important. We don't have time to go over all of them. But the first one's really critical, Congress. So the First Amendment was really written to restrict the federal government, the national government, and not state and local governments. And so Congress really can't create a state church, for example. They can't show a strong favoritism toward one particular denomination or one particular faith. And that's been sort of accepted wisdom throughout our history. State and local governments weren't really pulled into this until later, and that was part of that trend after World War II, where the Supreme Court begins to apply the First Amendment not just to Congress, but to state and local governments as well. And so that creates some of the complexity here also.
Now, I know it's, deeper waters to ask about the founders, but clearly this was a priority for them in some sense if it was in the First Amendment. What do we know about why they put freedom of religion in the First Amendment?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that first, the founders were extremely diverse on this topic. I think we tend to view them pretty monolithically in some ways. They have a lot of different perspectives when it comes to religion and the state, much less church and state. But I think in general, most of the founders were pretty comfortable with even the national government showing some preference for religion as a broad concept, showing some support for the idea of religion. So that's why they were comfortable with things like having chaplains in the military. Funded positions, Congress authorizes them, the military uses them, we pay for them. However, you had chaplains from across of different points of view. You'd have a Methodist, or you'd have a Presbyterian, or you'd have an Anglican, or you would have later on other groups as well. So you can't be picky and choosy there. You have to favor religion more broadly. And I think that's generally they were comfortable with that. For them, that wasn't a separation of church and state kind of issue. They're okay with Congress opening with prayer. That doesn't bother them. That's not a church and state kind of issue. They don't see that as establishment. That's what it really gets down to. For them, when they think establishing religion, they're thinking of taxing people to force them to pay for a national church. They think of the federal government paying for church property and paying for church buildings and paying for the salaries of a certain sect of ministers. And so in their minds, mostly that's what they think of as establishment. And so as long as the government can show some favoritism toward religion, but not enter into this establishment territory at the national level, most of them were pretty comfortable with that. Now, some of them would object to even that. Jefferson would object to that. Madison would object to that to some level. But generally speaking, that's where most of them found themselves.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, to us, we'd be like, what are they worried about that for? That sounds wild. But isn't that what was happening in England at the time?
Yeah, I mean, you can't pull them out of their historical context. They were looking back at the most recent couple hundred years of European history. And if you look at European history from the 16th century to the 18th century, you see a massive amount of conflict around religion, and especially around state churches. You see wars, 30 years war, 100 years war, conflict across the continent over church and state sorts of issues. And so then from them coming from England and the Puritans and the Pilgrims coming from England due to religious conflict, they're trying to avoid that when it comes to our new form of government. And so they want to make sure that there's some distinction between church and state for sure, but they're not trying to argue for a full separation where there can be no religion displayed at all, or there can be no mentions of God in public ceremonies. They weren't going for a secular state, I don't think, but they just didn't want to have an established church.
And before we get to the break, too, because I want to dig into this Louisiana law in just a moment here after the break. Yeah. It's a controversial concept, but I think in modern American history, we view the Founding Fathers' faith as kind of like a monolith, like they were all just a bunch of evangelicals, right. Like all of them. Right. To what extent is that true and not true?
I think as a whole, when you look at the American culture at that point, it's pretty Christian. And I would say relatively evangelical for the most part. And I think when you look at our founders, many of them would fit into that category pretty comfortably as well. So when you talk about someone like Patrick Henry, for example, or when you talk about Witherspoon. And these are people who are strong Christians who have very strong points of view that we would recognize and understand. When they use religious language, it would make a lot of sense to us. However, when you think of some other prominent Americans at the founding, like Thomas Jefferson or Thomas Paine, they were a lot more complicated religiously. You know, Jefferson, I don't think really is an Orthodox Christian. He thinks of Christ as a moral leader and as a teacher, but he doesn't really see Christ in divine terms as the Son of God who works miracles and who raises from the dead. That's just not Jefferson's conception of Christ or of God. And so, but to be fair, Jefferson was kind of on the extreme there. You know, Jefferson wasn't typical of the founders, but there was a fair number of founders who were a little bit more like Jefferson. Franklin, I think, was a little closer to Jefferson as well, religiously. And so then you have people like George Washington, who's just kind of a little bit more difficult to deal with. He doesn't talk a lot about his faith, and he tends to be very private about those kinds of things. And even in his letters, his language is a little vague. And so, we don't always have a very clear picture of where they're coming from, but they are a pretty diverse lot.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, there is a federal judge who put a stop to a new Louisiana law requiring the Ten Commandments in public school classrooms. Based on what we've just said, what in the world's the problem? We'll have Dr. Smith give us the answers to that. Again, he's from Cedarville University here in just a minute.
Hey, I'm Brian Hansen, and I tell people this is the most Jesus-shaped ministry I have ever seen, and I mean it. It's Cure International Children's Hospitals. If you haven't heard about them, you should. They heal the sick and proclaim the kingdom of God. Like kids get to get up and walk for the first time in their lives, and they hear the gospel. If you really want to see something awesome, check out cure.org/Moody. Just look at it. See the before and after photos and videos of these kids. It's so good. Cure.org/Moody.
High deductibles, shrinking benefits, out-of-network, closed enrollment. Those are insurance words that you won't hear from Christian Healthcare Ministries because CHM isn't insurance. We're a health cost-sharing ministry. For more than 40 years, CHM has been supporting families' healthcare needs and enabling Christians to help other brothers and sisters in Christ take care of their medical bills. As a CHM member, you'll send money each month to help pay for the eligible medical bills of your fellow members. And when you join, you're surrounded by other believers who share the same values. Christian Healthcare Ministries is created for you, believers who expect more from their healthcare. Enrollment is always open, and you can always select your own healthcare providers that work best for you. Choose from 4 affordable programs. Discover healthcare that's budget-friendly and affirms your Christian values at chministries.org/Moody. That's chministries.org/Moody.
Helping you take the next step in your walk with Jesus. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio, Cleveland.
7:50, we're having a conversation with our friend Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. He is Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities and Professor of Political Science at Cedarville University. Go to cedarville.edu for more information. We're chatting, in general about the First Amendment and religious freedom in America and what that truly means as we approach a brand new action from a federal judge against the state of Louisiana. Now, before we get to that, you said the early 1980s is where we had a major shift in public school classrooms in the Ten Commandments, yeah?
Yeah, the court, in 1980, the court struck down a Kentucky law that required the Ten Commandments to be displayed in classrooms. And this was kind of typical of the court in that era. They were a little bit more, the word I used before was they're a little bit more separationist. I mean, they tended to be very staunchly opposed to religious actions and religious activity within a public school setting. And in that sense, the decision doesn't really surprise you when you look at the historical trend of the court. So that was 1980. But I think you could say the court now that we have has taken a slightly different approach to religion and religious liberty, and so I think this case probably will make its way to the Supreme Court.
So what's going on in Louisiana?
Yeah, so Louisiana passes a law that's pretty similar to the one in Kentucky that was struck down. They're requiring the Ten Commandments to be posted in every public school classroom, elementary, middle, high school, as well as public colleges and universities. They have very particular designations about the nature of the display. It has to be a poster. It has to be a certain size. The font has to be legible. It has to be very prominently featured. and also has to have sort of a statement on there about how important the Ten Commandments have been for our country historically and educationally. And so they want to make sure that's available and prominently displayed in every classroom. And a federal judge, unsurprisingly, this is litigated immediately, and the federal judge made the decision that it just simply went too far for their taste.
So somebody might say, what's the big deal? It is a historical thing. So why can't people display that? Why can't it be required to be displayed?
Yeah, and this gets to some really difficult questions, I think, constitutionally. So, when the court looks at education, they tend to view things differently than they do for adults. And so, for example, as I was talking about earlier, the court's fine with Congress opening with prayer. No one really views that as a violation of the Establishment Clause, or I should say relatively few people view it as a violation, or your town council opening with prayer. But opening your school day with prayer, the court would say, creates other sets of problems. First, they would argue that children are impressionable, and putting a religious ceremony and religious activity or religious language or something like the Ten Commandments in front of children puts an expectation on those children that they ought to believe something. And at one level, as a Christian, I might be perfectly happy with them that they ought to believe Christianity. That's sort of my disposition to say, well, sure, we should put that in front of them and they should respond to it. But keep in mind, the court's also trying to protect the free exercise of religion. So it isn't just about establishment, it's about free exercise. In other words, what about those kids or teachers in those environments that are not from a different, they're from a different religious perspective? Maybe they don't have a religious point of view at all, or maybe they're from a religion that doesn't agree with the Ten Commandments. Maybe they're a Muslim. Maybe they're something else, where they look at this and are like, well, this is kind of offensive to me and it doesn't really fit with my belief system. And so the question really becomes, can the government put religious minorities in a position where they feel like they're being coerced into religious belief? That's sort of the way that the court looks at these kinds of situations when it involves children. In other words, the court's much more protective of children and their encouragement to believe something because of how impressionable they are. With adults, like, well, if you're if it's a prayer before Congress, well, you can get up and leave if it really bothers you. Or you already have your religious beliefs in place. You're not going to be affected by this. Whereas a child, seeing the Ten Commandments on a daily basis throughout their entire educational career, at some level, the court, this federal judge, and I think the Supreme Court would look at this and say, there's an element of coercion that's at work here. We're not sure we're comfortable with this kind of inducement toward religious belief.
So what's your anticipation of how the court will rule on this? Because right now there's technically a conservative majority in the court.
There is a conservative majority, and I think there are probably a couple of justices. I think maybe Justice Thomas and Justice Alito, who would look at this and really ask a very particular question, and it would be, does displaying the Ten Commandments establish religion? That's the question that they would ask. Does it establish religion? They'd say, not really. We're not paying for ministers' salaries. We're not punishing the students if they don't believe something. We're not forcing them to conduct a religious ceremony. And so we're not really establishing anything. They might say this is okay in their mind. However, I think most of the rest of the court is going to look at this and say, maybe this is a kind of mild form of coercion. It's just a poster on the wall, but they're not necessarily comfortable with the government being put in a position to push people toward a religious perspective. And so, think back to recently the case that involved the football coach from Washington who was conducting prayer after football games. And there is the question of whether or not that was really a violation of the Establishment Clause. And there the court looked at it and said, it's voluntary. He's going into a football field. He's kneeling down. He prays. If someone wants to join him, they can. If they want to walk away, they can. This is sort of an open process, and so there's nothing coercive about it. Well, this is really different. This would be a display in every classroom. Students can't opt out of it. There's nothing voluntary about it. It's there. They can't avoid it. And it has a very particular religious meaning, or at least a religious history to some degree. It has a legal meaning, of course, and a legal history, but also has a very strong religious element to it. And so I think most of the court's going to be pretty suspicious of this sort of law.
Now, as I try to think about this fairly, I want to be fair on these kind of things. I ask myself a few questions, and one of them would be, Would I be comfortable with this as a citizen if it were the 5 pillars of Islam or the 4 noble truths of Hinduism? Would I be comfortable with every public school classroom having to have those posted there? Or, for example, if there was a Muslim prayer every day, would I be comfortable with that? And technically, isn't it something where either everyone has to be allowed to do it or nobody can? Or is that the wrong way to look at the Constitution?
Yeah, I think if the court rules that this display in Louisiana is acceptable, then basically they would be saying that states then, and if states don't do anything, but states could pass laws that would require or have some kind of religious language or religious display within their public school classrooms as well. And if a state didn't do it, then maybe a local government might do it. And so you could think of a place like Dearborn, Michigan, which has a lot of Muslims. You'd think they would probably take a different approach to this, of course. And so, yeah, I think if the court's going to allow it, they're not just going to say, yeah, this is good for Christians to do, but no one else can do it. It's going to be the local government, the state government can make their decision here, and as long as it fits into these kind of parameters, then it's going to be acceptable. So I think that you're approaching it the right way. We can't just assume that every state and every local government is going to take a Christian approach to this, because that's simply not going to be the case.
I also have a theological concern with it in a sense. Like, I think there's folks who believe that, when prayer was removed from public school, God was banned from school. And if we can just get prayer back in, or maybe the 10 Commandments, magically he reappears like it's some sort of object that brings his presence. I have a problem with that theologically. You want to push back on that, or do you agree with me on that?
No, I tend to view it the same kind of way. I think we probably put too much faith and hope in those kind of religious displays. And I think at its worst, and I'm not saying having a prayer in a school or the 10 Commandments on a wall will do this, but at its worst, it might encourage people to believe but not really believe anything, to sort of have people think that they're Christian at one level, but in reality, they're just really not. Or they become cultural Christians, but not really biblical or doctrinally driven or faithful Christians. And so to me, whenever the government gets involved in sort of making these kind of religious decisions, you really run the risk of encouraging the wrong kinds of beliefs and maybe even threatening the eternal state of people's souls, who really have the wrong understanding of Christianity because they just view it as a cultural and political phenomenon.
Yeah, so if anything, I think we ought to be cautious on these kind of things, not just going, oh, that's in the Bible, I love it. Let's force people to look at it. We have to be careful, I think, in how we approach this.
Yeah, I do too. I think we want to make sure that people understand that this is a decision that they have to make. And I'm comfortable with government showing some sort of broad understanding that we're here and that God blesses us. I think when you get much more deeper than that, I think you just run a lot of risks. And so I understand it's a close call, and I know a lot of people would probably disagree with the way that maybe you or I see this, but I think that's where I would land as well.
All right. Well, once again, our guest has been Dr. Mark Caleb Smith. He is Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities and Professor of Political Science at Cedarville University. You want more information? It's an Ohio school. Just go to cedarville.edu. Again, cedarville.edu. Dr. Smith, thanks for your help on this one. I know it's a difficult subject, but I think important to talk about.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. I sincerely always enjoy speaking with you about this stuff, and so look forward to doing it again soon.
Thanks a lot. All right, it's 8 o'clock. We got Ron's news. We got today's More Ron moment. And then Dave Szfranski's here, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, ready to answer your financial questions. You just have to ask them.
Right.
We've had a situation the last couple of weeks where we start with nothing. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I should ask mine. No, yeah, you should ask your financial question. Hello? 440-546-2255. Call or text 440-546-2255.
Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland, WCRF Cleveland, WVMS Sandusky, WVML Millersburg, WVMN Newcastle, WVME Meadville, WVMU Ashtabula, and everywhere with the Moody Radio app or at moodyradio.org/Cleveland.
President-elect Donald Trump is nominating Florida Republican Matt Gaetz for U.S. Attorney General. It's 8:01. I'm Ron Eastwood, Moody Radio News. Yesterday's news was followed closely by word that Gates was resigning from Congress. The resignation means the House Ethics Committee investigating Gates over allegations of sexual misconduct and illicit drug use will no longer have the ability to continue its probe, which was reportedly in its final stages. Ohio lawmakers are approving a bill that would establish restrictions for public school bathrooms among transgender students. Senate Bill 104 was passed by the state Senate in a 24-7 vote yesterday, meaning it is on its way to Governor DeWine's desk for final approval. This measure would ban transgender students from using school restrooms that do not align with the biological sex they were assigned at birth. And the Federal Department of Justice has awarded the city of Canton a grant to cover the cost of hiring 5 new police officers. The $625,000 in funding comes from the DOJ's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services. Sports and weather coming right up.
From the creators of the beloved Little Pilgrim's Progress Illustrated Edition comes the freshly imagined Little Christmas Carol. Page after page of Scrooge, Tiny Tim, and others, illustrated as charming woodland characters, perfect for cozy nights by the fire, family read-aloud time, school reading challenges, or a Christmas gift for book lovers and Dickens fans. This beautifully illustrated book will be a wonderful addition to your family's holiday traditions. Get a Little Christmas Carol now at moodybooks.org.
In sports, the Cavaliers blasted the 76ers 114-106 and improved to a perfect 13-0 on the season. Meantime, the Penguins fell to the Red Wings in a close one, 3-2 in overtime. Here's your Moody Radio Cleveland forecast. Rain today, and our high temperature only reaching into the upper 40s. At last check, we had rain in Cleveland, 42 degrees, light rain in Akron and Canton, 39 the temperature, and in Ashtabula, mostly cloudy and 44.
It's time for your Moron Moment.
The Ohio Department of Natural Resources is offering Thanksgiving feasts at state parks all across the state. Guests can enjoy traditional Thanksgiving dishes while enjoying activities and scenic landscapes with their families. More information can be found on the Ohio Department of Natural Resources website. But remember, reservations are required. And that's your Moron Moment.
Moron.
And you'll find that on our Facebook and Instagram. It's 8:04. With Moody Radio News, I'm Ron Eastwood.
Broadcasting live from the Bob Devine Studio. It's Mornings with Brian. Want to join the conversation? Call or text now at 440-546-2255. It's Mornings with Brian on Moody Radio Cleveland.
Mornings with Brian. Moody Radio Cleveland. 103.3 at 6 to 9 a.m.
The opinions expressed during this program represent the opinions of the participants and is given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace professional advice for your specific situation.
It's that time of the week. David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group, ready to answer your financial questions right here on Mornings with Brian.
Wow. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Glad you're here. What's it like outside? Is it cold?
It was a miserable drive here. It was like road spray, and oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's the worst kind of drive. It's the kind of driving that makes you exhausted. I'm exhausted right now, Brian. I need a nap.
I will object. The worst kind of driving is, I mean, apart from snow and ice and all that, is the rain that can't decide how hard it's going to rain. And I spend my entire drive changing how fast my wipers go.
Oh, you
that is
you need
the bane
a
of
new
my
car.
existence.
I got a car that decides that for you.
I'm sure you do.
No one is stopping you from buying me a car. There is not one person.
No one is stopping me.
Only
no.
you.
Yeah, the only thing stopping you from doing that is your own self.
Yeah, you're right. I am stopping myself. I am. I'm stopping myself from buying you a car.
All right, we got financial questions
lot of
for
questions.
Dave. Oh, good. 440-546-2255.
What's the difference between the Secretary of Treasury and the Fed chair?
Oh, well, a lot.
Well, one of them is the chair of the Federal Reserve. The other one is
who is the
Secretary
Who
of the
is the
Treasury.
chairman of the Federal Reserve, Brian? Chair Powell! For now. For now, Henry. We're going to have to record something new when Trump
No,
fires
he
him.
has said he won't resign.
Oh, okay.
He will not leave even if he's asked.
It's an appointed position, but for 6 years.
It is.
Okay.
It transcends the presidency in time frame because what they wanted to do when Congress instituted the Fed in 1913 was make it as apolitical as possible,
And
if
so
that's possible.
When it's vacant, then it's appointed by the president.
It's appointed by the president. It's approved by the Senate. The Fed is actually a private organization.
Kind of like the IRS, right? Aren't they?
No, the IRS is a public
I
organization.
thought there was something private about it.
There's nothing private about it. Your information
Dave
isn't
answer the
private.
question.
They're
I'm
not
sorry,
private.
Dave, go.
So the Treasury Secretary is the one who they interface with the Fed a lot. They're the one who signs the currency. So under the last Trump administration, it was Steve Mnuchin, and we don't know who it's going to be yet. It could be Howard Lutnick. It could be,
But it won't be for 2 years.
Well,
He's talking about the Secretary of
Oh,
Treasury.
the
sorry.
Secretary of the Treasury is the one who
I got lost.
they interface with Congress. They push the president's budget. They do a lot of it's really a critical job in the administration because they also do things like sanction foreign governments when they're acting against our interests.
Oh.
The Treasury is very, very powerful, and the Treasury controls a lot of the money supply. The Fed prints the money. We borrow money from the Fed. That's who the Fed controls interest rates, short-term interest rates. The Treasury controls everything else. It's extremely powerful. It's probably, outside of the Secretary of State, the second most powerful position in the cabinet.
I thought that was a good question because I didn't know the difference either. Okay.
I liked it.
Do you constantly score the questions when they come in? Do you?
Yes.
I mean, we do, not always publicly.
Should we,
Yes.
if we were holding up signs right now with the score on them, what would your score be?
For that last one?
Yes.
A 9.
Okay, so for every question here on out, we'll hold up
No, we're not.
imaginary scorecards.
I don't think people understand how big a 9 is from Lauren. Like, Jesus gets a 10. A 9's a big deal.
No. There you go.
Well, that's big.
Dave, if I pass away still owing on my mortgage, what happens and what can I do to prepare for it?
That's a good question.
Well, you know, the easiest thing to do, if you want to owe nobody money when you assume room temperature, buy life insurance. Life insurance is the ultimate transfer of risk. You're saying, look, I'm going to pay this monthly fee. And if I get whacked in the parking lot walking out of here, my wife is going to get some money so she doesn't have to remarry quickly and badly because she's never going to reproduce this. I mean, honestly. I like to tell her frequently.
That's true.
You have
She'll
it
need
so
some time alone, let me tell
good.
you.
I like to tell her millions of women would kill to be where you're at right now. I want you to realize that.
But you're saying that the life insurance should cover the cost not just of a funeral, but of paying off the house.
Yeah. Funerals are expensive. I mean,
Yeah, they are.
I'm pretty sure at my funeral, it's going to be standing room only. It's going to be crowded. People are going to be like, he was the greatest guy ever. and we need to pay respect. So,
and you'll also be awarded the Humble Award for lifetime achievement. It's amazing. You've done it. So now,
yes.
But
what if
someone doesn't do this and they have a balance left in their mortgage?
Okay, so whoever let's say that you've put in your will that your kids will get your house. They're going to sell your house and pay off the mortgage. The mortgage has to be paid. Someone's is paying the mortgage, whether it's you, your estate, your heirs, somebody is paying that mortgage.
What if it's upside down in value?
Then I don't want to be the inheritor of that house.
Because they would ultimately be liable, right?
Somebody is paying that mortgage, yes. Now, let's say that you have no will, you have no children, you have nobody. It's
like
you and 12 cats, okay?
Daria.
So...
Sorry, she has 2 cats.
Hold on. Let me hold up a 10 on the look that just got given to Brian.
She has 2 cats. 2 cats.
2 cats for now. I'm sure it'll be more.
She almost got one from my house.
Just 2.
Just 2 for now.
Cat lady.
Cat lady. So what they would do is they would probably auction your house off or sell it, and the bank is going to eat the difference. So banks lose money too. Banks are traditionally the worst property owners in history.
No, that's very true.
When we found that out in 2008, when they owned a lot of houses because they were loaning money to people who couldn't afford houses. So what would they do in Ohio? They'd foreclose on the house and then they'd do nothing. And then winter arrived. Winter came and every pipe froze and everybody had mold in there. So now they got to remediate the mold and do all,
That happened to me in Chicago where the house next door was vacant and pipes burst and it was pouring out water in the winter, ice between our houses. It was terrible. It was awful. So yeah, banks are terrible property owners. So plan ahead so that no one has to worry about this in your absence.
Most of the people that I come in contact with, honestly, do not have enough life insurance. They underappreciate it. It's a powerful tool. It's pennies on the dollar. It could be the best investment you make. Let's say you make one premium payment and die. That was a great investment. You paid like a couple $100 and you got $100,000 of insurance for your whoever. That was a great investment. Be a good investor. Buy life insurance.
And keep the cat number low. 440-546-2255. Don't take a break?
Take a break.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Aren't you supposed to go like this? Isn't that the universal sign?
Yeah, but then he stopped talking, so then I had to start talking.
Well, yeah, you said no.
We don't know Brian to stop talking very frequently.
440-546-2255. More questions for Dave coming up.
Counseling. It's what God created you to do. When you earn your Master of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling from Moody Bible Institute, you'll be equipped to help others become who God created them to be. Study at Moody's Chicago or Michigan campus, where you can secure certificates in the areas of marriage, family, and couples counseling, as well as trauma-informed counseling. Learn more and get started on your counseling career today. Go to moody.edu/counseling.
Moody Radio is thankful for Kingdom Story Company, the creators of Jesus Revolution, now releasing the best Christmas pageant ever. The Herdman kids are absolutely the worst. They lie, they steal, they bully, and when they hijack the town's sacred Christmas pageant, they might also be exactly what the community needs to be reminded of the true meaning of Christmas. Directed by Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, the best Christmas pageant ever, now playing. Rated PG, parental guidance suggested.
Meet Pastor James Ford Jr. every day on Moody for 24 minutes of treasured truth.
The reason you listen to Moody Radio and to Treasured Truth is because God never opens his secrets to a Christian with a closed Bible.
Clear, powerful Bible teaching and wisdom to guide your walk with Christ.
When I open the Bible, God opens his mouth. And when I close the Bible, God closed his mouth.
Treasured Truth.
Weekdays at 9 and Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. on Moody Radio.
I'll be in airports coming up, so I'll be getting a Starbucks, and I always tell them my name is Armando because when I was in Miami one time, they said latte for Dave, and 14 people stood up. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen again. So now I'm Armando to coffee shops. And whenever I put in a reservation at a restaurant or anything like that, my name's Armando.
It is weird, but it's true. Dave Szfranski with us, a.k.a. Armando.
I am not weird.
He said it is weird.
Oh, okay, never mind.
440-546-2255.
But if the shoe fits, walk it.
I was good. If you didn't say it, I was good. So there you go.
If it's a nice shoe, I'll walk in it.
Yeah, okay.
I have $250,000 invested with Edward Jones and $140,000 invested in my 403B, and I'm still working for the same company. Do you think I should combine these investments?
Well, technically, you can't yet because the 403B, which is it's like
it's for nonprofits, right?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit kind of 401k type easy thing, usually in annuities, which you know how I feel about that, Brian.
You love them, your favorite.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. I keep annuity contracts in the commode room just in case I run out of commode paper. And then you crumple them up so they're really soft, and then you could. Actually, I don't do that.
You're how old? I've never heard anyone under the age of 70 use the word commode.
Commode? I am 45-ish, Daria.
No,
Thank
you're
you for
not.
asking.
Look it up on the internet. Totally not
I
true.
have a T-shirt that says 45-ish. Okay, so I'll wear it next week.
Please do.
So the person can't combine it yet because you can't move the 403B.
While you're working, while you're still employed, technically, most 403Bs will not allow what's called an in-service distribution. So it's going to stay in the 403B. That's where you're contributing. And when you retire, you could take that 403B and move it to your own IRA. And if what you have at Edwards Jones is an IRA, then you can combine them at that time, but you have to be separated from service.
We started working with a financial planner, and they charge $75 a month and then 1.25% on our total portfolio. It seems high, but we have no idea what other places charge. Are we getting fleeced?
Well, you're not getting fleeced. So you are. I'm going to assume that you're getting good advice that you like. 1.25% is probably higher than the industry average.
What's the industry average?
Probably around 1. You know,
Okay.
I've seen people that are charging 2%, and I was at a conference one time, and there was this very glamorous person there. Extremely glamorous. I'm like, wow, is this royalty or something? And no, she's an investment advisor, and I said, so just out of curiosity, how do you run your business? She goes, I don't manage any money. I'm like, well, what are you doing here? And I tend to ask very pointed questions sometimes when somebody says stupid things to me. And so she says, well, I'm just the quarterback. I farm it all out, and then I'm the quarterback. I'm like, wow. And so what do you charge? And she charged 2%. The total fee was 2%. I'm like, wow, and you do nothing. Yes.
Wow.
Very proud of it. So
now it's usually either a fee or a percent.
yeah,
right?
I don't understand. It's $75 a month. That must be the dry cleaning bill. I don't know.
If you had a really high maintenance client that was constantly moving things around, would
Yeah,
you begin to do a fee like that?
Let's say I had a high maintenance client named Brian.
He is. He's my high maintenance.
Whoa, that was
Brian.
fast.
Not that,
That was
there's
fast.
any relation to this situation here. No. Well, there are times where people want me to do things that are not in their best interest, and I say no. And we even had somebody say, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to move my money. I said, well, hey, there's the door. Nothing's stopping you. I'm not doing that. I will not do what you're asking me to do because I'm going to be held accountable for it. So most people come to us because they're seeking our advice. So they're not, if you come in my office telling me what to do, I'm probably not the place for you.
But you're also not charging a percent and a fee.
No, it's either, to me, it's either or. It's 1.25 or $75 a month, but not both.
Can you negotiate that with an agent?
Yes, absolutely. And yes, you should. And, you know, what I would do is I'd say, look, I'm paying 1%. That's what I'm paying. Take it or leave it. And see what they say.
Yeah, there you go. They'll be like, all right, 1.10. Yeah, how about that? 1.2. And you go back and forth?
Brian, you need to advocate for yourself.
That's
Brian.
what
Be
I'm
your
not
own
good at that.
advocate.
I'm not good at that.
You ever hear somebody tell their kids that? You need to be your own advocate.
Yeah, I tell my kids that, but I'm terrible at
Yeah,
it.
your kids should sit down and be quiet. Okay? The adults are in the room. We'll handle this.
That's not what I do, but
I would like to ask Dave if he plans to hold another class in the near future or can suggest where we can really learn how to manage our retirement money and make wise choices and be good stewards.
Class? You mean like a little get-together, a little soiree where we kind of get together and we talk about money management and political environment, things like that? Is that what you think they're talking about?
I think they are talking about that. Did you plant this question or something and you have one coming up?
I never plant questions. I did that one time with my friend Gary, and he was so obvious. I'm like, Gary, you never cease to amaze me how much you could screw things up. So,
are you planning on doing another class?
I'm not really planning on it, but I'm not opposed to it. I like to do it. It's always well attended. I use it to raise money for the Amazon. And I like to talk to people. I like to get people together and do things like that.
But if you have a financial advisor that you trust, you shouldn't have to be regularly stressing about it, right? I mean, you want to be aware of what they're doing, but if you trust them, you can, sleep easy.
I like the words of Ronald Reagan in this situation. Trust but verify. And, getting different opinions is a way to trust and verify. One person doesn't have every great idea, so you could pick up on things from different people that I think would be...
I don't know, Ron's pretty,
He's the exception.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, 440-546-2255.
So where can they go to learn how to really manage their retirement money?
Well, let me, once my staff gets done with their chores today, I will...
I can't believe you brought that up again.
I'll get with the staff and see if it's even possible with the current
to
schedule.
Do a new class.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lauren probably talks about us like that at home.
So I gave Brian a list of chores. One was just comb your hair.
Yeah, basically. I would like to know Dave's thoughts on the state of the aviation industry. Spirit Airlines' possible bankruptcy, Boeing's production, thoughts on Archer Aviation, making electric planes. I know it's a lot, but Dave can handle it.
Electric planes. I do not personally want to fly on an electric plane. I do not want to do that. I don't know that it's even really possible to make commercial aviation electric. When you think about how heavy batteries are and that planes need to stay in the air, I just don't think those two things are congruent.
But now, if someone's stressed out, right, let's just say in general about, oh no, what if the whole thing collapses? We can't have the airline industry disappear. We need air travel.
We need air travel. And the Spirit Airlines bankruptcy, they are going bankrupt. And, I think this is the difference between the administration we have and the administration that's coming in. The Trump administration would have let that Spirit JetBlue merger happen, because what the alternative is, you're going to lose an airline. They're going to close gates. They're going to exit markets because they can't make ends meet. The discount airline space is so incredibly competitive.
Yeah.
If you were to look, if they were to say, okay, here's how much money we made off this flight, you would be shocked at how little money they make.
Yeah, that's why they're charging to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like, you want to open your eyes on this flight? I'm sorry, that'll be $100.
Yes.
I mean, Spirit Airlines.
Everyone, sit down and close your eyes.
The first time I got on there, like I'm looking for the button to put my seat back, and somebody leans over. No, buddy, you got to pay for that.
There is no recline on Spirit Airline seats. There's no recline.
They got to get as many seats in there as they can.
They got to get as many seats. It is a highly, and the biggest thing the biggest expense that they have no control over, which is jet fuel, and so. This industry is so intensely competitive that if they fly a plane with 10 empty seats, they're losing money. And the Biden administration, the Federal Trade Commission under the Biden administration has 53% of Fortune 100 companies under some kind of court-forced action right now. And I think the Trump administration would have let that merger happen knowing, hey, we're going to lose seats and gates and competition anyway. It's way worse if an airline goes out of business or just has to skinny down so much that they hardly fly. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So the airline industry in general, planes,
it's going to make it.
Well, oh yeah.
We need that.
We're not. It's never going to disappear because we have mainline carriers, and it is like one of the life arteries of economic growth.
Oh yeah.
In fact, when United bought Continental was. I'm just going to hold on a moment of silence for Continental Airlines.
Do you miss them?
Oh my gosh, I love them so much. They were the best airline ever.
They've been gone for like 40 years.
No, they haven't. They've been gone for a while, but they had when Continental got bought by United and United moved the hub out of Cleveland, no Fortune 500 company is going to move here because they don't want their executives, if they don't, not every executive flies private. But if you've got to make a stop to go where you're going, they're going to move to Chicago. They're going to move to Atlanta.
Well, that's why we have a whole terminal that's empty here.
I know.
It's terrible.
Yeah. In fact, you know what airlines should charge for is puking on a plane, because I was flying back from Charlotte last night and the lady behind me puked for 20 minutes. I'm like, could she just puke a little quieter? This is really annoying. I mean, it's so gross.
That.
I almost puked because she was puking. I'm like, why get me involved in your illness?
I had a whole international flight where the kid behind me thought it was a punch screen, not a touch screen.
Oh, I would turn around and smack his mom.
Okay.
Because she is a bad mom.
Okay, we're moving on. My husband and I need to update our wills and have been hearing a lot about trusts as a part of estate planning. We'd like Dave's input on the importance/necessity of trusts.
Okay, so what's a trust as compared to a will?
A trust is your ticket out of probate court. A will is your ticket into probate court. So when you assume room temperature and you have a will...
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
A trust is your ticket out of probate court.
Okay.
That gets you out of probate court. A will is your ticket into probate court. So when you assume room temperature, and everybody said there, these things that I got to say something nice about Brian, what's it going to be? Oh, he had a great beard. Yes, that's what they're going to say at your funeral.
I bequeath my beard to Lauren.
His beard was epic. So they get and then you go through probate court and they say, well, okay, who gets the house? It's in the will. So we're going to probate that. There's going to be a fee. It takes time. We got a trust is a document. It's private for one thing. Your will is public. You could go to Los Angeles County Courthouse and look up Marilyn Monroe's estate when she died. It's all in there. It's public, into perpetuity. John Wayne's estate, public. If you're a private person, a trust is a really good tool, and it's immediate. So as soon as you assume room temperature, the trust is in effect. So technically, you could transfer your property immediately upon death via a trust.
So it would seem to me that if somebody has any sort of assets really to pass on, a trust makes some sense at some point.
Yes, and I think there are other ways to do it too. You could do transfer on death deeds for your houses, your cars, your timeshares if you made that mistake.
What if you're like Lauren and me though, and you have kids and you just really have nothing? Except the kids. I mean, you need a will for the kids.
Your kids are probably going to bury you in the back 40 with your tractor.
That's probably the cheapest option.
Yes.
But I mean, when do you know it's time for a trust, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because Lauren may not need a trust right now.
No, but she absolutely needs a will.
I have one. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do you have a will, Brian?
Yes, I have a will.
Okay, good.
And I have a way.
Daria?
Where there's a will, there's a
I do not.
Okay. We need to get Daria a will. You got to have a will.
It is
To
time.
have a will. Because in your will, you could set up durable powers of attorney. What happens if you are driving to the radio station on a rainy morning
And a deer jumps out.
and you steer off the road and you crank a tree and you're incapacitated, can't make financial decisions? Somebody has to have access to your accounts.
Well, she would tell you Jimmy has that.
Does my husband
Does
not
he?
count?
Well, if he's
Not if he's
listed,
in the car with you.
there you go.
Why would he be coming to work with me?
Who knows? Maybe he's a special guest.
Who drives when you're with Jimmy? You or Jimmy?
Jimmy does.
Okay.
Most of the time, attorneys, by the way, do flat fee work for wills.
Yeah, it's like $500.
It's not very expensive, and it's worth the expense, yeah? Trusts are more expensive.
Yeah. Trusts are more expensive, but they're more detailed, and you may need one, you may not. We were driving back from Chicago one time, and my wife and boys were in the car, and my wife said, "You want me to drive?" Everybody at the same time said, "No!" Like, well, I guess there's a consensus.
We got to take a break.
Unanimous.
Lauren just gave me the break face. So it's time to take a break. It's 8:32 on Mornings with Brian. Our guest is Dave Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group. You get your questions in 440-546-2255.
Today with Ed Cannon, the president of the Far East Broadcasting Company.
We're going to hear from a listener in India, and you're going to hear different techniques that our broadcasters use to reach people in that nation with the gospel of Christ.
I am from Bihar. I am 25 years old. I received a book which was sent to me for my spiritual growth and guidance. It was a book that made me realize that Jesus Christ is the only Savior who forgives our sins and gives us eternal life. I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as my personal Savior and committed my life into His hands. I listened to the programs and I am blessed by them. I am now growing in the Lord steadily.
That's so great. Again, that's from India. Ed, is it unusual for a listener to receive something from a broadcaster there?
Our staff recognize in India, Wayne, that it's not good enough just to put a broadcast out and assume that people hear and understand. It's very common for us to write letters, visit listeners, participate in gatherings of listeners, and send them Christian literature.
They're very dedicated to that, aren't they?
Because we understand that the impact of extra work beyond the broadcast is what's making the difference in that country. This man's depth of spiritual commitment comes through in his testimony, and I think it comes from an understanding in that culture of how important religion is in their life. They grow up in the Hindu faith with very strong commitments to their faith and their beliefs, and that when they become Christians, it's reflected in their commitment to Christ and their dedication to proclaim His word to others.
Well, this word came to us today from India. Other life-changing stories can be found on our website. Go to febc.org to learn more. Once again, febc.org.
Political tension, wicked rulers, false gods, rebellious people. This November, join Dr. Stephen Sanchez and Today in the Word for our study on the Old Testament book of 2 Kings. Yes, this landscape may feel all too familiar, but when we look past the discipline and destruction of Jerusalem, we will see how God uses crisis to win back the hearts of those He loves. To join our Bible study on 2 Kings, download the free Today in the Word app or go to todayintheword.org.
Armando, Armando, Armando. Armando, Armando, Armando. A-R-M-A-N-D-O, A-R-M-A-N-D-O. Armando, 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 Armando.
Mornings with Brian, WCRF. That sounds a lot like Dave when he sings, except Dave's not quite that good. 440-546-2255. Get your financial questions in. Take it away, Lauren.
With the new administration coming in, what are your thoughts on the stock market? Is it a good time to buy stock? Should we wait?
Well, I can't help feeling slightly unburdened by what has been. And in saying that, I think the market response to the election results were very telling. The market went up a bazillion points in 3 days.
So it's not a great time to buy.
Well,
just buy low, sell high. Hello.
Buy low, sell high. Yeah. If you took your money and you said, Dave, I want you to buy at the absolute worst time to buy for the next 5 years, and you came back 10 years later, you'd still make money, and a lot of it. So is there a great time to buy? Now, if you had a big chunk of change that you were saying, well, I got to put this money to work, I think in any situation, I would do it over a period of time. So, maybe you pick 6 months, maybe you pick 8 months, maybe you pick a year where you put in a little bit.
Drip it in at a time.
I call it a program trade is what we would call it. So you say, I'm going to take 1/10 over the next 10 months and I'm going to invest that money and I'm going to do it with purposeful action. And if the market's up 500 points on a day, I might skip that day and buy in on another day. But I think putting all of your money to work at one time in any market is generally a bad idea.
Okay.
So it's okay to move slow. It's okay to move purposeful. I like that, actually. It shows thoughtful, purposeful investment.
440-546-2255. Let's go to the phones. We've got Linda. Hey, Linda, what's your question?
Okay. My husband has a 401k through his job, and I had accumulated deferred compensation from my old job. Is it possible to roll that into his 401k?
Great thought, but no, not at all. It's not possible at all.
Why not?
Well, because his 401k, it's a form of an IRA. So all of these 401 laws are like IRA is a 408, 401k, 403b. They're all individual accounts. They're all set up under your tax ID number, known as your Social Security number. So it's got to stay individual. Now, what you could do with that deferred comp, and what I would recommend for most people, not all, but most people, is I would take that deferred comp and I would roll it out of deferred comp into your own IRA. So you're going to have your IRA. When your husband retires, he's going to take his 401k and move it to his IRA. Now, if he dies, if he assumes room temperature, you could take his IRA and roll it into your IRA. Spouses can do that. Spousal transfer is still permitted. And so, but he's got to be deceased. Now, I don't want to give you any big ideas. And maybe he should check his brake lines in his car.
No one's doing that, Dave.
No one's doing that. Okay. But no, you can't do that. You cannot roll your deferred comp into his 401k.
Okay.
I am 55. All I have will be Social Security and $500 per month pension. Is it too late to save for retirement?
It is not too late.
Never too late.
It's
right?
never too late. Yeah. And, I think to our detriment, companies, management firms, money management firms, to our detriment, have set up this idea that you need $1 bazillion to retire on. And you don't. What you need is a budget. You need to live within your budget no matter what that is. And I have met people. I remember early in my career, I get a call. I'm like, hey, we want to meet with you. And I know this neighborhood. It is epic. I mean, this is like, they have butlers in this neighborhood. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. And I pull up and they show me their fur closet and it's loaded with fur coats and art on the walls. And they said, the reason why we have you here today is because we can't pay our bills. I'm like, wow.
Shocking.
This is very disappointing. I'm not going to lie. And they could never retire because they didn't have a budget. And so you could retire on a lot less money than the fur closet people and the art people on the wall. We just need to be wise with our finances. So could you save? Yeah, you could save. And when you first start saving, the amount that you're saving is meaningless to me. I don't care. It's more important that we establish a habit of saving. So live under your means, save a little bit of money each month, have an emergency fund. These are things that we could work with. I could show you a path to retirement even on this budget. It's possible, yes.
Does a single mom in her 30s with a young child need life insurance, doesn't own a house?
Yes, absolutely.
It can be tough as a single mom to afford that because it's not necessarily cheap to do life insurance, Dave.
Well, it is cheaper now today than ever because we're living longer and women are cheaper to insure. But think about this child, okay? So let's say something happens to single mom and her parents are going to raise the kid. Well, it costs a lot of money to do that. Maybe you want that child to be able to afford college or some type of higher education or job training. So to go out and get a $100,000 term policy for 30 years, assuming that you're height and weight appropriate and non-smoker, it's very inexpensive. It's way cheaper than what you think.
Now, you're obviously not giving quotes, but what's the ballpark for that? I mean, I don't even know.
How old was she?
30.
$15 a month.
Really?
Yeah.
So it really isn't that bad.
No, it's cheap. I'm telling you, you can't afford not to do it. When people look at, my first boss, Ray, I love this guy. I would not be in the business if it weren't for him. He would say, look, if you're arguing with a couple about, or if a couple's arguing about life insurance in front of you, say nothing. Just let them argue. And then ask the wife, well, what is it that you don't want to be able to afford when your husband dies? And all of a sudden, this conversation gets pretty real. Now, somebody in that conversation is going to be mad at me because I caused an argument. But they were probably arguing about something before I got there anyway, so I don't care. These things are real. I have seen family situations where there's a death and there's no life insurance and they can't afford things. They have to make some very, very difficult decisions. And I've seen situations where there is life insurance and somehow, there's a death and it's sad and everybody's hurting, but financially they're okay. And it makes a huge difference that I don't have to take my kids out of private school or sell the house or make this snap decision because it's financially we're fine. We're going to get through this, but it makes a huge difference. And that's really this is the ultimate transfer of risk. We're saying, look, if I die, I want my financial obligations to be handled so my family doesn't have to make horrible decisions.
Is there a sense in which you could go to someone who's selling life insurance and tell them what you can afford to pay? Because it seems like they're always like, oh, that's not enough. More.
Yes.
They're trying to get you to buy as much as possible.
Well, not always. So if you say, well, okay.
I can afford $10 a month. What can I get?
Yeah, you could do that. Absolutely.
And it's possible to do that, to get life insurance for $10 a month.
I don't know. It depends on factors like your health, your weight, whether you use tobacco products. Your driving record matters. You know, if you have 12 points on your license, you get denied for insurance.
Wow.
Why? Because you seem to be a risk taker. We like people with good credit. The better your credit is, the better your insurance rates are going to be. The less points you have on your license, things like that. Those things matter. So they all affect the price. Now, life insurance is cheaper today than it was 10 years ago. So it does make sense to investigate it. Now, think if you make $50,000 a year, I'm just picking a number, okay, and you said, well, I want to protect my family for at least 3 years. So that's $150,000. That would be the number. It's easier. We try and make it complicated and formulaic and everything, but really, you could just say, this is what I can afford. What can I buy?
Well, and it's also a discussion of goals. Like, let's just say for Lauren, if Eddie were to pass away, what does she want to be able to do? Does she want to be able to pay off the house? Does she want to be able to not work for a few months, pay for the kids' college tuition? All that stuff matters.
So you look, generally what I do is I look at, well, what are the debts that we want to cover? And do we want to just get to zero, or are we trying to replicate the income that person provided?
If so, for how long?
Yeah, what are we trying to do here? And that kind of drives the number. So I think the number, so if I said to you, if money wasn't an object, how much insurance would you want? Okay, so maybe it's $100 million. Well, we're not going to be able to do that. So we have to be realistic about it. So there is some formula in it. It just really depends on what you're trying to do. So single mom, who's going to take care of this child?
She should probably stretch what she can afford. Yeah.
Well, we need to see the budget. I hate rules of thumb. They apply to like two people. And so we really, it's individual. I would need to sit down with her and say, what are we trying to accomplish here? How can we best do it?
Okay. All right, 440-546-2255. Time for a quick break. A few more minutes for questions for David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group.
Moody Radio presents Christmas with Rebecca St. James. Sponsored by Compassion International and Christian Healthcare Ministries. Join us at Grace Church of Middleburg Heights on December 5th at 7 p.m. Celebrate Christ's birth with Rebecca St. James. A night of worship and wonder with special guest pastor Scott Lessing, Associate Pastor of Life Stage Ministries. Tickets are online at moodyradio.org/RSJ.
Pursue your passion for shepherding, teaching, and ministry leadership with a Master of Divinity from Moody Theological Seminary. New for fall of 2025. Earn the same world-class degree in a shorter amount of time. We've reduced credit hours to earn a degree while maintaining the quality and course content essential for effective ministry. Need flexibility? Take classes online or on our Chicago or Michigan campuses. Even interchange between all options on a class-by-class basis. Get started at moody.edu/MDiv.
And I've always made this promise to Moody listeners. I don't charge anybody to come and see me or to talk to me or anything like that from Moody Radio, because a lot of people don't know who to talk to. And so if they call me and talk to me over the phone, I have no skin in the game. I have nothing to gain or to lose by talking to them. I want to make sure people have a place to go. I want to make sure people have a resource to use so that they don't get cheated and robbed and taken advantage of, because I think that Christians should care for Christians. I think that we should reach out to the people who don't know where to go so that they have someplace to go. That's what we do. We take care of our own.
He's also a big fan of long speeches.
Blah, blah, blah.
David Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group.
Bag of gas that is. Oh my gosh.
All right, what's next?
Any recommendations on life insurance companies? Do you recommend term or full life, married with 2 children?
They're probably talking about whole life. There's several different kinds of insurance that you could buy. Term insurance is just that. It's good for a term. It's the cheapest. Whole life is permanent insurance. It's the most expensive kind of permanent insurance. I happen to like variable whole life insurance the best, because there's investments in there. But, you know, everybody's different. If you want no risk in your life insurance, then whole life is good. And, you know, it's weird because when you look at insurance companies, they're not all created equally. Some are way more expensive than others. And what they do is like, oh, we don't have a lot of risk from 35 to 42-year-old males, so we're going to price that really good. And so if you run a life insurance quote, it might be different. I mean, very different for just the age that you are. So one company might be really competitive in this age, not competitive here. So you gotta. I mean,
it doesn't matter all that much because they all have to pay if you die.
No, it does matter because their credit rating does matter. You don't want to pick a low credit rated insurance company. You do not.
Okay. Okay, 440-546-2255. What's next, Lauren?
What is Dave's recommended method for setting up a trust?
Well, talk to an attorney who does trust.
Hire an attorney.
Yeah,
Most attorneys do that, don't they?
No. Don't go to a DUI lawyer for your trust.
Well,
okay. So, no, go to a trust attorney. Go to an estate planning attorney.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's some out there. And in fact, if you're looking for one, I think the best place to start is ask your pastor or staff at church, because there may be somebody at your church.
Who's that Zion guy? Remember him?
Mulhall
Nate?
Zion?
He'll be here next week.
Yeah. Didn't his wife used to work here or something?
Kathleen Zion, yeah.
Does she have like 14 kids now?
3.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, she's getting close.
Way less than Brian. Okay. What would be a good investment for retiring? I am 42 and I do have some in savings.
Plastics. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
How old? How old are they?
42.
Clarify that that's a joke.
Yeah.
Someone's going to go invest in plastics and not realize
Dave
it's a movie
said
quote.
to do this. 42. Well, I think that your best investments are stock-oriented, equity investments. I sat with somebody yesterday who has they're like 45 years old, and they love bonds. I'm like, hey, I don't mean to be critical, but you are totally screwing this up. This is the worst portfolio I've seen like in my entire lifetime. Like, well, you're just saying that because you're a stock guy. I'm saying, no, I'm not a stock guy. I'm a best interest guy. I got to do what's in your best interest. And this is not going to get you to retirement. So at 42, you got plenty of time, a diversified portfolio, equity-based, whether it's mutual funds or individual stocks, but you've got to be invested in the market. It's the only thing that makes real money over long periods of time. It beats inflation. That's what you got to do. The bond market barely beats inflation over time. So that can't be your number one investment. Doesn't mean it's not part of it, but it can't be the number one thing.
How do you save if a husband and wife aren't on the same page? I save and my husband spends. We're both in our late 50s.
Mm-hmm.
My husband thinks Social Security will take care of us, and it won't.
I think you have to sit down with somebody who can speak into your husband's life and say, stop. You've got to have a balance in your life. And, your pastor could be a place to start. Money is one of the things that couples argue about the most. Kids, money, and a couple other things we won't talk about here on this show because it doesn't apply. But money is a really big hot button issue in marriages. So sitting down with somebody, maybe going to a workshop where they talk about budgeting, or talking to your pastor about, hey, we have a difference of opinion on money. Could you help us meet in the middle? So he's right about some things. Okay. I have met people where one person would eat Dinty more to save for retirement.
I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But to your point, Dave, we don't have all the information here. And oftentimes in these circumstances, it's one person wants to save to the point of poverty.
Yeah.
And the other is like, can't we have a little fun here? The answer may be in the middle somewhere. The person that wants to save may have to save a little less than they want. The person who wants to spend may have to spend a little less.
And we don't know. She might be a horrible nag. She might just be nagging him to death. Like, I just got to
it's
spend money.
possible.
It's possible. I am not married to that woman. My wife, for the record, is not a nag.
Sarah and I have had to figure out a way to meet in the middle, because oftentimes she would rather save everything and I would rather spend everything. And so we have to meet in the middle somewhere.
Well, the way to do
You understand,
that,
Lauren. Because aren't you and Eddie the same way?
I would love to spend no pennies.
Nothing?
Yeah.
And Eddie likes to buy shoes and hats and...
Yeah, he's not like crazy.
Hats,
but
like fedoras?
What?
Does he wear a fedora? He doesn't wear a fedora, please.
He wears baseball hats.
No, he doesn't go crazy. I just would be like, you don't even need that. I'm like a little too tight. Like, I just don't want it to spend any pennies.
This is why a budget makes sense for people, because it's a piece of information that says, okay, all of our bills are paid, our retirement savings is happening, we have this discretionary fund, and you pick what your discretionary fund is. And so maybe when I first got married, I was allowed, and I'm not kidding, $5 a week to spend however I wanted. And I had to make a choice. Do I park in the garage or do I park at the Coast Guard lot and walk? I had a military ID, so they let me park in the Coast Guard lot down on East 9th. And that's what I would do, so I could get a cup of coffee or get my shoes shined every once. We had a shoe shine guy in our building. It was great. It was like therapy for $5. It was wonderful. Nobody could talk to me when I was there. So this is why a budget makes perfect sense, because it does allow the spender to meet that visceral need to be spending someplace somewhere and buying fedoras, and it also allows the saver that visceral need to save.
Would you let Eddie have some fun?
For heaven's sakes.
I do.
Let him have some fun,
Lauren. It makes
Lauren.
me so uncomfortable, but I allow, because he's in charge of our budget. He knows where we have, room
he
to spend.
He keeps calling me and Brian and crying.
It's like, Eddie, we'll
Could
talk
you
to her.
talk to her?
We'll bring it up.
Please.
I'm like, I'm not talking to her.
Let her spend.
I don't want to get that
money.
look again.
Eddie, we're
that
scared
too.
We're all scared.
Have you ever looked at Eddie, that visceral, to
No.
the depth of his
No.
soul?
Never.
That's just saved for me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
No,
I am
she's
so fortunate.
She's got like the special melty eyes only for Eddie.
Yeah, obviously. He's my husband. Oh, gosh. My husband is retired. I still work. All of our debts are paid. Do we need a life insurance policy for him?
You may not need one at that point.
Well, I have there's this part of my psyche that is totally against canceling life insurance. I'm like, well,
but if you don't have any at that point.
If you don't have any,
all
remember,
the debts are paid.
The fundamental, basic reason for life insurance is a transfer of financial risk. That's the really the sole use. Now we've added things onto it and made, put bells and whistles on it and made it all fancy and things like that. But in the end, no, you probably don't. Now what?
But maybe enough to cover the cost of a funeral. Why not do that?
No one's going to sell you a $20,000 life insurance policy. It's like $100,000 is the smallest one that you're going to buy.
And it would be expensive for someone who's retired anyway, right?
It depends. No, like if you are in good health and you've taken care of yourself, your height and weight appropriate, proportionate, you don't smoke, you don't chew, you don't hang out with girls who do, then probably it's not as expensive as you think. So, but would I
even
go out
at like 70?
But so in that case, you're going to use it for estate planning. So if you had an estate tax problem, which you probably don't have because the estate tax limit is $23 million per couple, you probably don't have that. Then no, do you need one? Would I go out and buy one right now? No, but if I had one, I probably wouldn't cancel it either.
Gotcha.
I'm the only person on my mortgage. My husband is on the deed. Do I need to have the mortgage transferred to him on death?
No, they're going to find him. They're going to be looking for him. They're going to want.
It's not hard to change that kind of thing, though.
It depends.
It's just paperwork,
It depends.
Right?
So if your husband's credit is really bad, or you recently got married to this guy and his credit is really bad, it might be more difficult than you think. But I probably would put both names on it, and yeah, I probably would do it. Yes, and I'd want to know why it's only in her name. Was she hiding something? Did she hide this mortgage from him?
Okay.
Is this a secret? Do we need an intervention?
Maybe she had it first and then they got married later.
Yeah. In which case they also
Doesn't
need
always
a
have to
estate
be
plan.
nefarious, Dave.
That's just where my mind goes.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we know.
Okay, a follow-up about the Secretary of Treasury and the Fed chair.
Yes.
Who affects the economy more, the Secretary of Treasury or the Fed chair?
Oh, if I were to guess, it would be Chair Powell!
Dave, that was too much.
Wow. Yes. I knew it would surprise you. That's why
You're
I
going
did
to tone it down about 5 notches next week.
Don't tell me what to do.
You will be toning it down.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, Chair Powell can speak things into existence, like recessions. He could speak a recession into existence in 10 minutes. If he came out at his next press conference and said, oh my gosh, I've never seen things like this, the market would sell off 5,000 points. In fact, Janet Yellen, she was the brand new Fed chairperson, and somebody said, Miss Chairperson, do you think biotech stocks are overvalued? And in a just an inept moment for a Fed chairperson, she said, oh, you know what? I do think they're slightly overvalued. She cured the overvaluation. That day, biotech stocks went down 20%.
That's wild.
Wild. With the words of one person at a press conference being asked questions by really press morons. Most of those people are not, they have like a journalism degree.
They're not finance people.
They don't know finance. There's a few people that in that room that probably really do intimately know finance, but by and large, they're asking questions that somebody told them to ask. They don't know.
Before we go, quick question. For someone who wants to get life insurance, since there were so many questions about that, how do you get it? Who do you talk to?
A life insurance agent would be a good place to start.
But financial advisors can do that too, right?
Most financial advisors do. Some don't, because you have to have certain licenses to do it, and they don't want to carry the licenses.
But it's literally a life insurance agent.
Yeah, you can go online and do it if you want term insurance. I think that there's enough nuance to it where I would talk to a person who would walk me through a process a little bit.
All right. Well, that does it for this week. And thanks to Dave Szfranski, president and founder of Edgewater Investment Group. If you want to talk to Dave, just come to us. It's the easiest way to get a hold of him. Thanks, Dave.
Righto.
Are you done? Anything else, Lauren?
I have nothing to say.
Oh my God. It's a miracle.
Not really.
No, it's not at all. Okay, we got to get out of here. We'll talk to you on a follow-up Friday, which is tomorrow. You can send in topics anytime you want. Text them in as you think of them. Email us, and our